This is my lecture on chapter 5 from social psychology. It's entitled The Self, Understanding Ourselves in a Social Context. So self-concept is defined as the overall set of beliefs that people have about their personal attributes. Okay, and this is a video about self-awareness. So there is people call it the red dot test. Some people call it the rouge test. Where basically with a little kid, they will put a red dot on their head, on their forehead, and have them look into a mirror. And below a certain age, usually below 18 months, a child is not able to recognize that that is them in the mirror, that they just think it's like another person. And then after 18 months of age, they're like, okay, and they touch the dot in the mirror, realizing it's them. And this is almost solely unique to humans. There are a couple animals, dolphins. There was one elephant once who was able to do this. I think it's chimpanzees. There are a couple animals who are able to have self-awareness, but a lot of animals aren't. Like dogs. Like my dog will look in the mirror and think it's another dog, right? So self-awareness, almost completely unique to humans, but not quite. This is an interesting thing from the textbook about statehood. So the way we settled the United States was east to west. The 13 original colonies were in the east. And there is a theory that because the people who went west were maybe adventurous, and the 49ers, and they're kind of a newer area, maybe they have non-traditional names. So this is just on the left, you see percent of babies with top 10 names, and then the year of statehood. So Massachusetts is the oldest state, and for male is blue and female is like red and white. They have 12% about of traditional names of babies that are in the top 10, like John, Mary, things like that. And then you see over here, like Oklahoma has less of the traditional names, which is kind of backing up their theory. Whoops. So introspection is the process whereby people look inward and examine their own thoughts, feelings, and motives. Can be uncomfortable for people. And self-awareness theory is the idea that when people focus their attention on themselves, they evaluate and compare their behavior to internal standards and values. Causal theories. Theories about the causes of one's own feelings and behavior. Often we learn such theories from our culture. For example, like these platitudes of absence makes the heart grow fonder, opposites attract, these kind of things that we learn, colloquialisms. The two-factor theory of emotion is the idea that emotional experience is the result of a two-step self-perception process in which people first experience physiological arousal and then seek an explanation for it. Okay, so we might get that nervous feeling in our stomach and we kind of look around in our environment and we're like, what is making us nervous? So maybe this could be incorrect. We get this nervous feeling in our stomach for some reason, and we look around and we see someone we know, and we're like, okay, Bob makes us nervous because I feel nervous. And it might not be right. I think the example in your book is like you go to the amusement park on a date and you're riding the roller coasters, and it doesn't mean like arousal sexual. It's like arousal like you're having fun, your blood pressure's high, all that kind of thing. So you might think that you emotionally like that person more than you do because you're aroused because of the fun amusement park rides, right? So this is kind of saying that humans aren't very good at detecting what causes our physiological responses. And then the misattribution of arousal is just kind of building on that, right? That we make mistaken inferences about what is causing them to feel the way they do. So they had this study, the reason I have this picture here in your book, where they had men walk across this, like heterosexual men walk across this rickety bridge, and at the end they had an attractive woman who asked them questions, and so she asked them questions, and then they had another set of men where the woman met them like halfway on the bridge, and this is like kind of a scary bridge. It's sways in the wind, and the ones where the attractive woman met them on the bridge, they were more likely to ask for her phone number, to email her, follow up, and be like, hey, do you want to go on a date? Whereas the ones that met the woman on the other side of the bridge were less likely. And that kind of backs up this hypothesis that, they were scared, they were aroused, maybe they viewed the woman as better looking, maybe they thought they really liked her, but they were misattributing that arousal from being scared. Okay, so here's the chart for that. Percentage of men who telephoned the woman. Woman approached participants when they were arrested after crossing the bridge. So they'd cross the bridge, I think, and sit down, and then she'd approach them. So that was like 30%. And then when they were on the bridge, about 65% followed up with the woman. So like while they were scared when they met him, yeah. Motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is like internal. We want to engage in an activity because we find it enjoyable or interesting. Okay, so if you like to read, some of the research says that, let's say like a child likes to read, that you shouldn't give them extrinsic motivation. Like you shouldn't reward them for that because they might lose the intrinsic motivation. There's actually a theory about that, I think, in a later chapter. But the research is mixed on that. There's been times, I used the example in class of Pizza Hut did like the Book It when I was a kid, and you would get like free personal pan pizzas for reading. And I always worked really hard at that and still like to read to this day. So research is mixed. And then extrinsic motivation is a desire to engage in activity because of external rewards or pressures. So on a test, I might say something like, my son will do chores, but only if we pay him. Only if we give them that extrinsic motivation. Okay. Oh yeah, here, over-justification effect. I don't think this is on your study guide. Pretty sure I didn't write about this on the midterm, but the tendency for people to view their behavior as caused by compelling extrinsic reasons, making them underestimate the extent to which it was caused by intrinsic reasons. So someone might be like, well, I'm very accomplished in my job because, I get paid well and I get a lot of prestige, but they're really discounting how much they love the job, how much it intrinsically makes them happy, and they're just like intrinsic desire to do it. So this is, minutes is on the left, blocks of days is over here, baseline with no rewards, how often someone engaged in something, the reward program, and then the follow-up with no rewards. So basically it's saying once people got rewarded for something, so let's say they just, were doing, let's say reading, let's stick with the reading, reading and recording their reading habits, and then they started getting reinforced for reading, and the reinforcer was taken away, there was a sharp decline, whereas there wouldn't be that sharp decline if they were never reinforced. So you probably heard of fixed mindset versus growth mindset, Carol Dweck. Fixed mindset is the idea that we have a set amount of ability that cannot change. So people say, I'm just not good at math, or I'm just not a good test taker, whereas the growth mindset is achievement is working hard, trying new strategies, seeking input from others, that the brain is like a muscle and you exercise it, that nobody's inherently good or bad at math, it's just how much you practice it. And we would, this is like you praise a child for effort instead of smart. So instead of telling a kid, hey, you're so smart, you'd be like, hey, I know you worked really hard on that. The social comparison theory is the idea that we learn about our own abilities and attitudes by comparing ourselves to other people. This is like a normal thing, right? That we don't exist in a vacuum, that we compare ourselves to others. Like how do you know you're tall? You compare yourself to others. How does someone know they're good looking? How does someone know they're good at tennis? How does someone know that they're good at math? Comparing to other people. And that's kind of how we do everything, right? So my son is 7, almost 8. And when he goes to the doctor, they do his height and weight, and then he gets a percentile. He's pretty big for his age, so he's in like the 99th percentile or something. So they compare him to other kids his age, right? There's no just like standard, this is how much you weigh, this is how your height, we use it as a comparison. So the idea of upward social comparison is comparing ourselves to people who are better than we are with regard to a particular trait or ability. So it can be good in some ways in that, if you are playing a sport, like if you're playing, baseball, and you want to play with people who are better than you, it could make you work harder, but it could also be bad in that, let's say you're comparing yourself to social media or like models or something, and it makes you feel bad about yourself because it's an unrealistic beauty standard, right? Whereas downward social comparison is comparing ourselves to people who are worse than we are with regard to a particular trait or ability. So can, make you feel better. Maybe you're like, okay, well, things aren't going well for me, but it's not that bad. Self-control is the ability to subdue immediate desires to achieve long-term goals. Very important, right? To, not just do whatever you want with spending and eating and all those kind of things. And, just being able to delay gratification. Implementation intentions are people's specific plans about where, when, and how they will fulfill a goal and avoid temptations. Okay, sometimes we're bad at estimating this, right? Like the diet culture is always a good example to use here. If you're going out with your friends and you're on a specific diet, what are you going to order? You might look at the menu ahead of time. Are you going to eat beforehand? If they get an appetizer, what are you going to do at work? Are you going to pack your lunch at school? These kind of things, making these specific plans. Impression management is the attempt by people to get others to see them as they want to be seen. Okay, so job interviews are a good example of this. You want to look nice, you want to look professional, you want to present a certain way. Maybe you have work friends that you appear a certain way to. You don't want them to maybe see personal things about you. Ingratiation is the process whereby people flatter, praise, and generally try to make themselves likable to another person, often of higher status. So this is a tactic, if maybe you're dating someone and you meet their friends and you want them to like you, or you have a new job. And it's not necessarily fake. I mean, it could be like real compliments, but it's with the end goal of ingratiating yourself within the group, right? Getting people to like you. Maybe you agree with their opinions, things like that. Self-handicapping is a strategy whereby people create obstacles and excuses for themselves so that if they do poorly on a task, they can avoid blaming themselves. So one of the questions on the Kahoot was something like, which the Kahoot is posted, John has an interview tomorrow, but he goes out tonight drinking and stays up late. So, he's doing that subconsciously so that he can, if he doesn't get the job, he could say, well, it's because I was out drinking. So if he has a fear of failure, he at least has something to blame that failure on, right? And that's pretty much chapter 5.